Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today with an astrology video for you, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about your sun, moon, and rising or ascendant, and kind of what the differences between these things are and how you can combine the three of them to kind of interpret your basic personality and approach to life. All right, so I know that there's a lot of people out there who are wondering what the difference is and how do they even use this in their lives and how do you even use them to interpret anything. So I hope this is going to help to clarify a little bit of that. Now there are so many different approaches to how you can use the sun, moon, and rising. So what I'm going to be telling you today is one of the approaches that I find to be the most useful when you're looking at sun, moon, and rising. Okay, I'm going to call it rising instead of ascendant, just to keep it the same throughout the video. So I actually have gone into detail about the moon sign, which I'm going to post a link to that video up there, okay, and also in the description box below. And I've also gone into quite detail of the rising sign, link above and the description box below if you want to have a look at that. But okay, so let's say you've looked at those two videos and then you're like, oh, so what do I do with it now? So that's what we're going to do today. All right, so if we think about the rising sign, okay, as being the way that we used to approach the world, we see that it has more of a very obvious extroverted, almost Aries-like quality to the rising sign, as it projects itself onto the world and wants to kind of interact with the world in that way, wants to get the attention, wants to associate with people. That's what the rising sign is doing. The sun sign is our being, all right? It's a conscious part of our being. It's conscious because we don't just become like born on this earth and we're just the best version of our sun sign. We actually grow into our sun sign because there's something in the sun sign that we truly value. There's a quality within it that we want to become. And we are going to become that throughout our lives. Okay, and the sun sign has it's also an extroverted kind of quality to it, but there's a stillness to it. Okay, if you think about the rising sign as being more Aries and the sun sign as being more Leo, you can kind of see how Leo has a more steady, fixed energy to it, whereas Aries is more dynamic and it's going out in the world and interacting and starting things and doing things and reacting to things. But the Leo energy of the sun, it sits there, it is proud of what it is, and it radiates a certain quality that draws people to your sun when you're radiating it positively without you having to do much of anything. It's just the way that you are, the way that you be, the way that you become, and it's very attractive to people, okay? So when we think about the moon sign, now the moon has a Cancer quality to it, which means that the moon is reactive. The moon is introverted. The moon does not act on anything. It's very reactive and it's very reflective. The moon doesn't actually, take a life of its own, okay? And when we're looking at the moon in comparison to the sun and the rising sign, we're thinking about the moon as kind of reflecting the rising sign and the sun to match the sign archetype of the quality of the moon that is associated with the archetype of the zodiac sign that rules your moon sign, okay? The moon has this quality about it where it assesses whether the things that we do with our sun and rising sign is right for us. All right? So that's why it's so reflective. It doesn't do it consciously though. It's a very unconscious planet, and that's why we might choose to do things in our life, go a certain path, and then realize it's not for us because our moon sign is reflecting our action, our rising and sun, and it's like, oh, it doesn't match this internal state of this moon sign and house. So, okay, if we have a look at some examples, okay, let's take a Taurus, okay? Let's say that a Taurus rising famous person like Lana Del Rey, okay? And Taurus being the sign of ruled by Venus, of harmony, of grace, of sensuality, of steadiness, and gathering of resources. Lana Del Rey has a Taurus rising, and she is very extroverted, okay, very out there with her sensuality, very out there with, you know, wanting to be beautiful, with displaying romantic love stories, which is romance and Venus and Taurus, you know, they're all related, right? So she displays that more. It's not like she's trying, it's natural for her, okay, to display that, but the rising sign needs to get attention somehow. So the way that she's going to get attention is when she displays these Taurian qualities. Okay, so now let's compare her to a Taurus sun, like, I was going to choose Kelly Clarkson, but then she also has a Taurus moon, so that doesn't count. Like Robert Pattinson, for example, he's a Taurus sun, okay? So Robert is not overtly displaying his sensuality or his love nature or his, you know, Venusian qualities or his like steadiness to the world, okay, because he doesn't have a Taurus rising. But you can get a sense, okay, without Robert having to do anything, that he's a very harmonious, kind person. He wouldn't hurt anybody, and he's a little bit sensual and a little bit sexy as well, but he's not overtly taking the action to display it like Lana Del Rey is doing it. He's just being himself, because the sun has this self-sustaining quality to it, where if you become like your sun sign, you are going to gain a sense of self-esteem and self-confidence. So it's not really about, oh, I want to be this sun sign so that I can interact with the world. That's the rising sign. I want to be the sun sign because that's going to give me self-confidence and self-esteem. So it's a more self-contained kind of energy, which will eventually attract people because it shines like the sun. Now, I don't really think that it would be useful to point out celebrities who have celebrities' moon signs, because you won't really see it. Moon sign is too private and even unconscious. But okay, let's take another example of, let's say, a Sagittarius archetype, okay? So let's take someone like, okay, so let's take someone like Ellen DeGeneres, who's got a Sagittarius rising, okay? And Sagittarius is all about fun and adventure and being funny and lighthearted, and like, come on, Ellen is probably the funniest person on the earth right now. So she's really like overtly, you know, interacting with people in a very Sagittarius-like way, okay? Whereas, you know, she's interacting in this very fun and fiery and, you know, kind of a way. Whereas if we look at someone like Taylor Swift, who is a Sagittarius sun, and she doesn't have a Sagittarius rising, okay? She's not overtly trying to be funny, or she's not overtly interacting with people in this very feisty manner. But we can see that her goal in this life, you know, her path in this life, you know, when she's pursuing her career as a singer, she's very, you know, shooting her arrow like that Sagittarius, you know, shooting it in that direction of, I'm gonna be a singer, and then she's going out there and she's grabbing it, she's conquering the world with her music and things like that. So, you know, she's just being this Sagittarius, and it gives her a sense of self-esteem when she is able to go after her goal like a Sagittarius does. But she's not interacting with people using those Sagittarius qualities. Okay, so we can kind of see the differences here. I hope that's making some sense. So let me give you an example of how I've interpreted this in my chart. Okay, so I have a Gemini rising with a Taurus sun in my 11th house. Okay, so you got to take the houses into consideration, and my moon is in Cancer in the first house. So this quality of the sun and the rising shows that my kind of life path and the way that I'm going to gain self-esteem in this life is if I communicate. So if I engage in interactions with people, okay, my rising sign, but in a creative way, like the Taurus, because Taurus is all about Venus and about creation and things like that. So I have to learn to communicate creatively with 11th house things. So the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. So things like astrology, okay, things like humanitarian issues, social issues, something about maybe something about the cosmos and being able to decipher, you know, things that is not easily noticeable in the world, trying to figure out the oddities and the eccentricities of life, communicating all those things in a creative like way. That is my purpose, and that is what gives me self-esteem. Now, because I have this Cancer moon in the first house, so this gives this crabby Cancer a bit of an Aries quality to it, because the first house is ruled by Aries. So I need to use this, okay, emotional, the ability to take action, emotional action, being authentic emotionally, and being able to act on my emotions in the moment, okay? This purpose of the sun and the rising has to meet that need of the moon. So the moon, my unconscious moon, constantly assesses whether the actions I'm taking with the sun and this rising is in alignment with the moon's needs to express its emotions authentically and in the moment or not. So a really good example of this is how I used to be in a job, okay, where I was doing a lot of communication with large groups of people, okay, that's the 11th house, but the kind of interactions, the kind of communications that I was having, it was also creative. It was very Taurus-like. I could create the way I wanted to communicate, but it didn't allow for me to get my emotions involved in the communication, because it was more of a practical, logical kind of way of communicating, of, you know, that job. So therefore, the moon in Cancer in the first house was reflecting on that and was saying, okay, this is not right for myself. This is not right for my internal self. So I'm gonna have to change that job and try to do something where I can meet those moon needs. I hope this is making sense, guys. So, and now the archetype of, and all of the zodiac archetypes are gonna run a gamut of different possible interpretations. And the reason why I've chosen to interpret my Taurus sun as being the creative aspect of Taurus rather than the sensual aspect of Taurus, or the money, the resource gathering aspect of Taurus, or even the more fertile aspect of the Taurus archetype, is because of the degree that my sun is placed in, okay? And if you know the degree of your sun sign, feel free to leave them in the comments below, because there is a book right here by Dane Rudyard, okay? It's the Astrology of Personality, and in this book there is a whole section, okay, that is dedicated to interpreting each of the zodiac signs degree. So what does it mean if you have a 7-degree Capricorn, 7 degrees Sagittarius, 10 degrees Capricorn? And I feel that when you can figure out the interpretation of the degree of your sun sign, that helps you to narrow down the scope of how you're going to, who you're going to become, you know, in this life. And it helps to narrow down the scope and give a more accuracy to how you're going to interpret that sun sign in correlation with the moon and with the rising sign. All right, so yep, if you know the degree of your sun sign, leave them in the comments below, and I will try to find, well, I won't try, I will find, I'll find the degree of your sun sign, and then I'll answer them in the comments below telling you what the interpretation is. So for example, the Taurus archetype actually runs the whole span of enjoyment, okay, and the span of experience, all right, according to this book. But like, you know, there's so many facets of it. I'm not sure which one is the strongest for my sun sign, but having a sun in 19 degrees of Taurus, here's what it says, okay? 19 degrees Taurus. A new continent, fresh and green, rises out of the ocean. Potentiality for tangible self-manifestation in all beings. Overflowing originality, spontaneous, rich, creative urge. So when I read this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's my sun. So that's how I figured that, you know, the communications that I'm supposed to have on my journey needs to be a creative one in areas of the Aquarius 11th house. All right. So this is an amazing tool for you guys to, for anyone to really figure out what their sun is all about. Okay, so as a quick summary, guys, I want you to imagine this avocado, all right? This is your sun, moon, and rising right here. We have to understand that the development of the rising, which is the outer layer over here, okay? The sun, which is the flesh of the avocado, and the moon, which is the seed of the avocado, they're all developing in synchronicity with one another. And it is all very much dependent on the, well, yeah, they're in synchronicity with one another, with the ultimate base as the seed or the moon. Do you know what I mean? So as the seed of the avocado, you know, begins to grow, right? The flesh is growing in a certain way and the shells are developing in a certain way. And the seed is kind of analyzing whether the flesh, the taste, the smell of the flesh of the avocado, okay, is in correspondence with the actual seed itself or not. And whether the skin, what did I say? Did I say shell? The skin of the avocado, okay, is, you know, conducive to attracting the right people to come and eat it, to attracting, to displaying the right qualities of what's inside the avocado or not, you know, things like that. And if it's not, if the moon or the seed says no, it's not, then the avocado might change the smell of the flesh, the softness of the flesh, change the texture of the skin a little bit, you know, things like that. So yeah, I hope that's kind of making sense, guys. And if you're still a little bit confused with that, then please leave any questions in the comments below. And yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below if you haven't. If you've already hit the subscribe button and you're already a part of this astrology family that we've got going here, then thank you very much. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.